This is what a brake lining looks like on a drum brake. So, how do these semicircular pads brake? In this video, we'll discuss an animation of how drum brakes work. Braking occurs due to friction between a moving object and a stationary object. This friction creates resistance, making it harder for an object to move. In drum brakes, two components come into contact. First, the brake lining, which is shaped like a semicircle. The brake pads are the stationary component. The second component is the brake drum, which is shaped like a bowl. This drum is the moving component. In other words, the drum is connected to the wheel and its rotation. This corresponds to the wheel's rotation. Therefore, braking in drum brakes occurs when the brake linings contact the brake drum. So, how does the contact mechanism work? Well, the drum brake system consists of two brake pads, with a brake drum installed on the outside. These two pads fit into the drum's recesses. When braking, there's a gap between the pads and the drum, so the drum can rotate without any obstruction. However, when the brakes are applied, the two brake pads expand, creating frictional contact between the drum and the brake pads. This is what stops the drum from rotating, allowing braking to occur. So, how does the mechanism for moving the brake pads expand? Brake pads have two ends, an upper end and a lower end. The lower end acts as a hinge, so the reason it expands is because there's a hinge at the bottom end. Then at the top end, there's a brake actuator mechanism. There are two types of these mechanisms, mechanical and hydraulic. The mechanical type uses only a cam. When the cam rotates, a protrusion pushes the two brake pads outward. This mechanism is typically used on automatic scooters for the rear brakes. Hydraulic types, on the other hand, have a power piston at the top end. It consists of a cylinder, two pistons, and an inlet for brake fluid. When the brakes are applied, brake fluid is forced into the cylinder. As a result, both pistons are pushed outward, thus pushing both brake pads. Now, this hydraulic type is more effective and is commonly found on car rear brakes. The next mechanism is the adjustment mechanism. This is used to adjust the gap between the drum and the brake pads. The mechanism is located in the adjustment rod. This adjustment rod can be adjusted to any length. Turning the teeth can make the rod longer or shorter. As the brakes get longer, the gap becomes narrower, resulting in more effective braking. The final mechanism is the parking brake. The parking brake on a car is separate, so it has its own mechanism, even though it uses the same drum brakes. So, the parking brake mechanism consists of two levers mounted like this. These levers are connected via a wire to the parking brake lever. So, when we pull the parking brake lever, the lever inside the drum brake is also pulled, thus spreading the two brake pads to press against the brake drum. So, this parking brake doesn't use the power piston above, but rather uses its own mechanism to spread the brake lining. That's an animation of how a drum brake works in a car. Hopefully, it's broadened our knowledge.